I had a very successful event in Singapore. I was there for 10 days. A lot of you showed your affection on me wherever I went, whether it was the streets of Singapore, whether it was at the restaurants, the malls, and more particularly at the events. I wish to thank all of you from the bottom of my heart. My team felt that I had never done a full fledged event in Abu Dhabi, and they wanted me to do so because we have a lot of friends there. So the next event would be in Abu Dhabi on the 5th of October. Those desirous of participating in that event, drop a message at the WhatsApp number given below or send a mail at the email given. My team will get in touch with you.
Hey guys, welcome back to Be Rich. Before we get into the video, I wanted to bring to your notice that my uncles Vinod Srinivasan, Anand Srinivasan and I have rolled out our Substack, which is basically a blog/newsletter where we're going to post our original research onto it. And we've analyzed macroeconomic trends. And a lot of you know my uncle Anand Srinivasan and I regularly write for The Hindu. And these articles are also going to be made available for you in the Substack. The link is moatinvesting.substack.com. You'll find it in the description and in the video right now. We hope you go check it out. We've put a lot of time and effort into it. And please give us comments and feedback on what you read. Thank you. Hey guys, welcome back to Be Rich. Today we're going to be talking about Maldives' growing debt, how they've dealt with it in the past, and how they plan to deal with it in the future, and how they're currently struggling to deal with it right now. So let's get started on that. So first thing you have to understand about Maldives is it's a tourism-driven state. And given that climate change is happening and there's global warming, Maldives has borne the brunt of that effect. So it's very possible that in a few decades, Maldives is mostly underwater. That's at least the prediction which a lot of scientists have said, that if we don't meet a certain Celsius mark and we increase that mark, if the climate warms faster than that, there's a good chance that island countries like Maldives are going to be underwater, a large portion of it at least, the low-lying areas. This is a very scary, prospect for that country, given that their entire economy is based off of tourism mainly. It's very concerning for them. And tourism and climate change, these aren't the only things in the circle of concern for Maldives. Another fact is that they have a very high debt to GDP ratio, 110%. That's a pretty big percentage of GDP. And recently, Fitch, which is a rating agency which takes debt and then decides what rating to give it based on its financial stability, has downgraded Maldives' rating from CCC plus to CC. So CCC plus is basically, if I'm not wrong, the speculative grade, and CC is basically saying that there's a risk of insolvency or rather default with it. And if you go anything below CC, I think risk of insolvency is also something which goes up. We'll have Rupesh put up the rating scale on screen so you guys at home can also end up seeing what the rating scale looks like. But that being said, Maldives' rating had been dropped recently, and the Maldives' bond named Sukuk, which is basically Islamic compliant bond, because they have rules on how to lend money, and I think there's a rule that you're not supposed to take interest on money because it's considered usurious. So there's a certain rule, and Maldives, being a majority Islamic country, had decided to structure their financial assets in accordance with those Islamic laws. And those bonds which were issued, now they're trading at 71 cents to the dollar. So they're trading at only 71% of their issue value.
That means discounted.
Yes, it's been discounted. They've basically lost 29% of their. If you had bought Maldives bonds when they were issued, you would have lost 29% of your face value or principal.
That's if you want to trade it.
Yeah, if you want to trade it, you can also hold it till maturity. So in August, it was 80 cents, and by the end of August, it went down to 71 cents. So that gives you a bit of perspective on what has happened. So Maldives has $3.4 billion in external debt, primarily held by China and India. Of course, we're the two major superpowers within the ambit of Maldives. And of course, we're also exerting our muscle in that island nation. And China especially has pioneered in debt trap diplomacy. I'm sure a lot of you must have watched us cover Sri Lanka in our Be Rich videos in the past. And we've talked about China's Belt and Road Initiative, which is their way of exerting their influence on its neighbors and creating a sort of Eastern Bloc, a modern Eastern Bloc. And today, China has continued to exert its influence on this island nation with a lot of its debt owned by them. So, being the fact that they have heavily borrowed from these countries, and us included, India as well. But I'd like to think that India doesn't have such ulterior motives.
Well, that's because you're biased.
Of course, I'm biased. I love my country. But Maldives has borrowed heavily from us and from China. And the interesting thing about Maldives is that during the pandemic, they basically lost a huge chunk of their GDP because their GDP is generated through tourism. And when the pandemic occurred, mainly tourist-driven economies collapsed. And Maldives is one of those countries, and they were begging for people to come back after COVID restrictions were removed. I'm sure a lot of you must remember the discounted flight tickets which you could have bought to places like Maldives. So, before we get into the financial pressures, I want to take your opinion on what you think Maldives is going through right now.
Well, it's hard to say when your island is sinking, and it can be anywhere between 100 years to more before the island completely goes underwater. I don't think this is reversible, what is happening as far as sea levels are rising. Even places like Chennai, countries like Bangladesh are in deep trouble. Bombay is in trouble. Calcutta, because most large mega cities are built on the seaside, coast side, because that's how we developed as a species.
Especially places where they reclaimed land from the ocean.
Correct. So, and you can see this too, sporadic rains and heavy rains, sudden rains happening, with flooding going on. So this is expected to happen. So as far as time frame window is concerned for Maldives, even if the main island manages to survive, there's lots of small islands which are there. There's thousands of islands around Maldives. We're part of the country of Maldives. A lot of them will disappear. That said, as far as ratings and earnings and all this are concerned, Finch ratings and all that are only marks on a chalkboard. They are not permanent. India, through its history, has also gone through many rating changes and gone up and down. But the country manages to chug along. So it all depends on the leadership in Maldives, how serious they are about to address these things, and the population of Maldives, what the people of Maldivians want to do. From historically speaking, what I've seen them do, I don't think they're going to default on this because they have too much pride. But how they manage to get through this is a big question. Because the debt which is owed to countries like India and China, they will not be forgiven for no reason.
So there's another problem. Their currency is pegged to the dollar. The Maldivian rupiah is sort of pegged to the dollar, and they try to keep the Maldivian currency close to where the exchange rate at which they fixed against the dollar. And even though most of that money is made through tourism, which means that there's a lot of foreign exchange coming in, foreign exchange reserves still fell to $50 million in July. And that seems like a huge amount, but for a country of Maldives' size, $50 million is pocket change. And gross reserves dropped under $400 million from about $500 million in May. And given that they have a peg against the dollar, it hasn't helped its case that the dollar interest rate has been rising.
No.
Yeah, now it's maybe going to fall, so maybe that's going to give them some leeway. But generally speaking, it doesn't help their case.
No.
And an interesting point here is that this is how China launders, or I shouldn't use the word launder, but basically this is how China gets access to the US dollars in another way as well. Yes, they also export to the US. And you must have remembered in our last video, we talked about how the US is trying to cut away its dependence on China. But even without the US's dependence on China, with the Chinese banks exerting influence on countries like Maldives, which in turn make most of their money through tourism, their foreign exchange reserves are now then subject to the Chinese whims and fancies, which basically means that even if the US tries to directly cut off China, they still have backdoor access to the US dollar through countries like Maldives.
Yeah, but the thing is, China was doing all this pre-pandemic and everything was hunky-dory for them.
Yeah.
Right now, where China is standing internally with their own economy and things are not great in China, they actually are finding it hard to do this debt diplomacy right now. And if anything, they want people to start paying them back.
Yeah.
They're not in the mood for forgive and forget. And they don't want anything else in exchange. They want their cash back.
Yeah.
They're not saying, give me your port, give me your airport, give me a couple of 1,000 kilometers of your roadway network as an exchange for the debt because of what's happening internally. Their economy itself is spluttering. So, I don't know.
So, the Maldives needs the ability to access the market and refinance $500 million in Sukuk due in 2025. How they're going to do this is something which the president of Maldives, Mohammed Muizu, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing his name, but he has basically come up with a plan where he's asked for China to defer loan payments for 5 years. And he's talking to India and China about currency swaps to alleviate his dollar shortages. And he's saying, look, let's do a currency swap. I don't have too much dollars in my bank account. I'd much rather do a currency swap with you and take
But
your
he's
currency.
smart that way, because considering the fact that India and China don't get along, and both of us are trying desperately to maintain our influence in the Indian Ocean,
Yeah.
he's playing one against the other, which is a smart play by him.
Yes.
Because India and China, both of them is offering the same thing, and whoever bites it first, he will lean towards them more. So both countries will have no option but to accommodate these kinds of requests, because you don't want to lose your circle of influence which you have in the Indian Ocean. Because the Indian Ocean is right now the modern Silk Road.
Yes.
All trade which happens from Europe to Asia to Africa all run through the Indian Ocean. This is a false notion to think that you can cut off everybody and live by yourself, because you need petrol. Maldives doesn't make its own petroleum. It doesn't make any...
They need to import.
Yeah, there's no farmlands there to grow wheat and crops. So all that said, they need neighbors. And they like it or not, India is one of the world's largest economy, and in terms of future and growing and everything. And in a pinch, India is the closest country in terms of support, naval support, air support, in a national disaster, some domestic disaster. So yes, they may say what they want, but the reality is not so.
Right. That being said, thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please hit the like button. Please subscribe if you haven't already. If you hit the bell icon, you'll get notified of when we upload our latest video. And finally, if you have any opinions or comments you'd like to express, please leave them in the comment section below. Thank you again for joining us on Be Rich.
Thank you.
It's a great privilege and honor that so many of you in thousands have subscribed to my channel and have supported me. I have written 2 books in English, The Alchemy of Money and Ordinary Stocks, Extraordinary Profits. These books are published by us and are ready. If you want to procure a copy, send us a message to the WhatsApp number given below and my team would respond to you. If you want an Amazon Kindle copy, you can click the link below. Finally, those who wish to consult with me can send a mail to berichenglish@gmail.com. Once again, I thank you for your support. If you like this video, press the subscribe button of my channel, hit the like button and turn on the bell notification.